Chief Smart, Ihoma. And of course, I would like to use you to reach out to the rest of the mayors here today. Ladies and gentlemen, the man of the moment is right here with us. leader we trust. The governor who has given Abia State so much visibility on the face of the nation. His Excellency, Dr. Alex Otti, OFR.
Shall we pray? Father, Lord God Almighty, ancient of days, we give you glory this morning, this afternoon. We thank you so much for finding Abia a special state to provide us a son such as this that we have never had before. Be in our midst today, O Lord. Surround your son, Dr. Otti, Alex Otti, with your wisdom and power, that in these 2 years he has completed such a wonderful, touching every area of life, that in the next 2 years, every part of the world will use Abia, will always refer to Abia as where you can find good leadership. Thank you for providing us a son like this and his government. In the name of God the Father, in the name of God the Son, and in the name of God the Holy Ghost.
Thank you. Please be seated. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We're here again celebrating and thanking God for how far he had thus led us as a state. Of course, we know this started on Saturday with a Thanksgiving service at the SDA Church. And of course, on Sunday, we all converged at the Baker High School for an interdenominational Thanksgiving service. And of course, on Monday, there was a joint session of the Executive Council and the Abia State House of Assembly, where 18 executive bills were signed into law and 30 executive bills presented. Ladies and gentlemen, yesterday again, our dear father of this great state, Abia, made out time to celebrate the Abia children. And today we have gathered, firstly, to be part of the second anniversary lecture of our dear state, Abia. We are all here today, first and foremost, because we are Ndiabia. But most importantly, we're here because we have a governor we trust, a governor who has brought Abia State out from the doldrums of underdevelopment and obscurity. Today, within 2 years in office, His Excellency, the very visionary leader of Abia State, has given Abia State visibility in almost every sector of the state's economy. Of course, you and I know the story. Ladies and gentlemen, join me therefore as I welcome with every sense of respect and humility a leader who is operating on the wings of grace, a leader whom the people of Abia State massively voted for, a leader who has never disappointed us, and of course has sworn that he will make Abia better than he met it. His Excellency, our very dogged and indefatigable leader, His Excellency, a man who is indeed an excellent-minded leader, His Excellency, whose administration is people-oriented. Today, Abia State has turned into a construction site, all thanks to His Excellency, who has all the local government area being taken care of back to back. Join me therefore and welcome Dr. Alex Otti, OFR, our dear visionary leader of our time. I would like to also welcome the number 2 citizen, a man who knows what it takes to be a deputy governor, given every support needed. His Excellency, Engineer Ikechukwu Emeto, fellow Nigeria Society of Engineers, you're welcome. Let me welcome also the member representing the good people of Obingwa, Ubunabo, Osisioma Federal Constituency, Honorable Monachim Alozie, you're welcome. Let me welcome also the member representing the good people of Arochukwu Ohafia Federal Constituency, Honorable Ibe Okparo Songwa, you're welcome. I'd like to also welcome a very erudite scholar, a great Nigerian, unapologetic Abian, former Minister of Finance in this great nation, Nigeria, who is the keynote speaker for today's event, Dr. Kalu Idika Kalu. A round of applause. Let me welcome also members of the Abia State House of Assembly who are here today. I would like to welcome the Secretary to the State Government, Professor Kenneth Kalu, Chief of Staff to His Excellency the Governor, Pastor Caleb Ajaba, PhD, Head of Service of this great state civil service, Mr. Benson Ojaikere, you're welcome. Honorable Commissioners here present, I would like to use the Honorable Commissioner for Information, Prince Okekano, to reach out to all of you. Deputy Chief of Staff, Office of the Deputy Governor, Barrister Chiju Kewankwo, you're welcome. Let me also welcome the special advisors, senior special assistants, and special assistants to His Excellency the Governor who are here today. And I would like to use the special advisor to the Governor on projects, Dr. Emmanuel Meribole, you're all welcome. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, heads of government establishments here present, I'd like to welcome all of you. Let me also welcome great Abians and of course, elder statesmen of note. We have here today the former Chief of Army Staff and of course, a great Abian, Lieutenant General Azubike Onyabo Ihejirika, you're welcome. I want to also welcome another great Abian, Chief Ozadimma Okpara. We have here also Dr. Gershon Amonta. I want to welcome also Chief Johnson Chukwu. Let me welcome also Chief David Oba Onoha, OON. We have also Chief Tony Okasanya. We have here a former MD of Nikon, Chief Osoka Ogala. You're welcome. And of course, I'm not forgetting Chief Joseph Ogwo Jolie. You're welcome. Recognizing also a former member of the National Assembly, another great Abian, Honorable Udo Oluchi Ibeji. We appreciate your presence here. I will not fail also to welcome Chief Isaac Obonda, another elder statesman. Ladies and gentlemen, body of permanent secretaries here seated. Let me use the permanent secretary in the office of the Secretary to the State Government, Dr. Godwin Okezwe, to reach out to all of you. I want to also welcome Directors General and Chairmen of Commissions here present, especially the Chairman of the Civil Service Commission, Pastor Mrs. Enojeri. You're welcome. Executive Mayors here present, alongside their Deputy Mayors and Councillors. Permit me to use the host mayor, the mayor for Umuahia North Local Government Area, Chief Smart Ihoma, to reach out to all of you. Service commanders, especially the Commissioner of Police, Abia State Command, CP Danladi Isa, we appreciate you, and of course, using you to reach out to the rest of your colleague service commanders. Captains of industry, especially Sir Chris Abo, the president of Aba Sports Club, we appreciate your presence here. Let me also welcome the traditional ruling institution, those whom the history of Abia State, when told, definitely would have them captured. Ndieze, Kamwere Chairman, Ndieze reach out to all of you. His Royal Majesty Eze Salinus Ntomba Ezudo, you're welcome. The Abia State workforce, the civil servants, the Governor Alex Otti Letanya, Hanokwadena Hola, Ono. How else can we celebrate today with the alert that dropped in our phones this morning? Please, a round of applause. A round of applause. And of course, we know His Excellency has continued to do what he should do for us to ensure that we give maximum productivity in our jobs. Look at the Secretariat building and of course offices. You can see for yourself what is going on. Look at the introduction of the ICT trainings that the civil servants have also been undergoing, all thanks to a digitized governor of our time. Stand up and clap your hands for His Excellency the Governor. My dear Governor, these are your civil servants. We appreciate you, sir. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, on that note, I would like to call for the next item in our program brochure, and that will be presentation of Keynote. Biko kebuputoji bo onyo dinakaya ko were nabatarani akanachi Abia State, Governor of Infrastructural Revolution, Governor who continues to collaborate with development partners to give Abia State the much needed facelift that it sure deserves. Thank you. Please, the Keynote presentation.
Abia Mmaman Abia Mmaman Igbo Mmaman Nigeria kwezuonu Oji apụsale ndị steeti ewepụsala ọjị for ndị adịghị anụ n'Igbo. Ọjị anaghị anụ okwu ọzọ dada n'Igbo, so anyị na-eji Igbo mee ya. Ndị mụ na ọsa arụ ọrụ, chief of staff, commissioners, unu ahụla n'ọjị unu sị ngawa na-egbughị oge ihe dị taa dị ukwuu ife dị ya na mmemmewuri ya so mmeji rugwugo onye isi ọga m deputy governor mmeji ọjọọ nyefe gara aka abịa mmaman
che nnọkọ ndị ife kwenuwo ndị ụwa ọma kwen abịa mmanụ igbo wu igbo keleenụ ihe awa Ọjị steeti ndị National Assembly unu ahụla ọjị oke ndị National Assembly ahụla ọjị ndị State Assembly unu ahụla ọjị unu nọ ya oke ndị State Assembly anọ na mmemme a na-eme taa ma na-eji ọjị a egosi ndị ụkọchukwu nọ n'ebe a taa unu ahụla ọjị ma ndị bịa ile ndị steeti anya biko ha m were nna anyị nwụ Dr. Kalu Idika Kalu na-egosi unu ọjọọ ndị eje unu ahụla ọjị onye isi ala ihe a wụ ọjị ndị steeti onye isi ma anabasala ọjị biko ha unu ndị eje igwe eji akpa ya ụka ha agọzi ọjị kanị
unuche abịa mmaman unuche igbo mmaman unuche Nigeria mmaman onye isi anyị Chioma ndị abịa ome ka afọ n'anya a na-ekwu ekwu a na-eme eme ndị dum a n'ọsọrọ Abia steeti alaghachibala ọka mkpụrụ afọrọ abụọ ịnọ n'ọchịchị ihe emere afọ abụọ ọnwa lele nwa ndị eze dum n'ọrụ Abia steeti kwa na abụ ndị kpa nganga Abia the whole Eastern state ọ ndị eze Abia ndị ejem ọnụ ọ wee ndị asị ha asịwa bọdị na asị landlord anyị ugbu ọnwa dịzi ala ndị ọdụ enye obi gị ị ga-adịrị anyị ndụ ị ga-achịkọ anyị ihe ọma ga-edu gị aka ma goo ma dịgị weghachi ndị dum n'ọrụ esko gị ma kọmishọna wee dị famili gị ọ ga-adị were mma ọjọọ nwa bụ ọjị mma ajọ obi ọtọ ọjọọ aṅụrị abịa mmemme dị ntụ ọnwa ọjọọ aga njem anwụrụ ozo na-eto eze Nelson were ngwa ọlịbọ bụ central gị ngwale nwa ọjị
abịa kwenu onye isi anyị akpọtụ na gọvanọ anyị afọ mbụ biri ọjị aka gọvanọ obiela ọjị aka ya ndị Abia Central ihe ụmụahịa North ụmụahịa South ikwu anọ Isiala Ngwa North Isiala Ngwa South osisi ọma unu ahụla ọjị unu si m gawa mmadụ asịla ọbụla gbara obi agbakwara ụtọ eze Franklin Wosu laghachiwa n'ebe South lakaghị
Igbo mma mmanụ Igbo kwenu ụbọchị taa akakwala ibe ya mma anyị zukọtakwa n'ihe banyere ọdịmma na ihe ọma gọvanọ anyị na-eme ụmụnna m ndị Abia South ọjị abịarala anyị o. Ndị Aba North anọ ya, Aba South, Obi Ngwa, Ugwu na-agbọ, Ụkwa East and Ụkwa West ọjị abịarala anyị. Anyị anaghị etufu oke. Amaala m na asị m gawa. Ndewonu. Ọjị gbaduje n'ụzọ na-aga Abia North. Eze Ụwakwe Kalụ. Ukegbu Kalụ. Ụwakwe Ukegbu Kalụ. Asị m abụnụ Kalụ juru ebe niile. Oke ma na-afịa Kalụ nye ya Ukegbu. Eze Ụwakwe Ukegbu ọjị abịala Abia North. Lekwela aka gị.
Nigeria, Mamanuwo. Abia State, Mamanu. Abia North, Mamanu. Obuyeruzo 1 bụ gọvanọ anyị, Mamanuwo. Ọ na-adọrọ ya ma ọjị abịala. Onye ọbụla abaịsado ụlọ ọchịchị a mgbe ọbụla mgbere ihu ma o mezighị ajụ ya ihe eleksi Otti gọvanọ anyị mee mgbe ọ nọ so egbola ozi ụwa ihe ọ na-adọrọ ya ma n'aha Jizọs ọjị abịala. Ndewo. Our chairman na-akparụ fonu akpafuga.
Iba nombo Abia Umuahia North. Chairman Umuahia North. Nothing we go. Watch on the big neighbor. One, Mamma.
Umuahia North, Mamma Niwo. Umuahia Mamma Niwo. Ndi nwe state capital, Mamma Ni. Biko monyuku monyenta Umuahia North. Ika kendezo Umuahia North. Anya holoji. Ojikwane lalani. Mayor Umuahia North. Anya lage kwa maka nlekọta anyị biko ezochimọnụ ya ọ dị ezi ibe eko nọ nga adịghị ya gị kwukwe ọfọsọrọ bịa reko Mike ga-achụ letukwe onye isi anyị okwuele ekwu ọgọwala anyị na-achị ya ha ọlekwu ka ọ dị mbupụcha ka ọfọsọrọ bịa na Jesus.
Thank you very much, Ndezune Mela, for the reason for which we're here gathered. Please permit me, Your Excellencies, to recognize a former Nigerian ambassador to Argentina, His Excellency Ambassador Empire Kano. You're welcome. Let me also welcome the Secretary General Ohaneze Ndigbo, Chief Okey Wadinobi. You're welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, in that order, we'll move to the next item. And of course, I would like to invite the Secretary to the State Government, who will be introducing to us the keynote speaker in this lecture series. Thank you. A round of applause for him, please.
Your Excellency, the Executive Governor of Abia State, Dr. Alex Chioma Otti, OFR. Your Excellency, the Deputy Governor of Abia State, Engineer Ikechukwu Emeto. Permit me, Your Excellencies, to stand on a protocol that has been firmly established by the MC for want of time. My task, the task that has been given to me today is very special to me. Your Excellency, if you permit me, I want to tell a little story about how this great man, great son of Abia State, a great Nigerian, has inspired my own trajectory. He may not know. Am I permitted, sir, to tell a short story before I introduce him about, thank you, sir. So he may not know that his service, his trajectory, his work inspired me. I finished secondary school in 1989, and I went to live with my brother in Onitsha. And between the time I finished secondary school, 1989 and 1990, when I got into the university, we used to trek to the post office in Onitsha. That place is called Old Bucket Road, where you see a lot of newspaper sellers. They will line up newspapers, Champion, Daily Times, all the papers. So I'll spend my time reading through all those papers. I'll read through. And I got fascinated by what was going on at that time, about all the economic things coming. I got to know about Dr. Khalid Dikakalo, Tochu SPO Kongwu, Chifolu Falaye. All the things they were talking about just attracted me. So sometimes when I'm walking back from the post office, walking back to my house, I'll be thinking about structural adjustment program. I'll be reminding myself, even though I didn't know what those meant, reminding myself about inflationary pressures, how structural adjustment program will help cut government expenditure. I don't know what that meant, but I will just be remembering them. Expand the productive capacity of the economy, lead to growth. I'll be reciting those things, lead to growth in the medium and long term, all those things that were coming up at that time. And so I got into the university. By the time I was in second year, people had started calling me Dr. Carlo in reference to him. They started calling me Dr. Carlo. They said, Dr. Carlo Casa. Dr. Carlo Casa. Because I was always reciting all the things that were happening. What happens when you have professionals in authority, in public service? I didn't end there. I was determined. Everybody in my class in the university knows this. I was determined to be Dr. Carlo that they were calling me at that time. So I went to serve in Lagos after graduation. And then first of all, I got a job with Arthur Anderson towards the end of my service year. And I also got another job after I started with Arthur Anderson with GT Bank. So I was confused on where to go to. So I approached somebody, a senior lawyer at that time, and asked him, what should I do? His question, he asked me back, what do you want to do in the future? What do you want to be? I said my dream was to go get a PhD from outside Nigeria. He said his advice would be for me to take the job that will make it easier for me to achieve that dream. And going to get that PhD was because I was inspired by the likes of, in fact, by Dr. Khalid Kakalo, Dr. Chu SPO Kongwu, those people that were saying all the things that really, really mattered to me. And so I left Arthur Anderson and joined GT Bank. 4 years down the road, I went, studied finance, economics, and all that. Although, when I got introduced to theories of economic theories, I began to diverge. I became persuaded by institutional theories. I began to, see more of you as neoclassical. But today, that's just this, to tell you how your work inspired me. Today, it's not about economic theories. It's about 2 years of transformation in Abia State. 2 years of spectacular performance by the God. For somebody to be called upon to introduce somebody he's looked up to for a long time, this past 30-something years. So I'm very pleased to introduce to us Dr. Khalid Kakalo, who was born on October 14, 1939 in Ebemo, Ohafia, Abia State. He's a distinguished economist, as we all know, a public servant and statesman whose career has significantly influenced Nigeria's economic landscape and influenced so many people like my humble self. Dr. Khalid Kakalo holds a bachelor's degree in economics, 1964, a master's of art degree in economics, 1965, and a PhD in Economic Development and Public Finance, 1972, from the University of Wisconsin at Madison. He also served as a Stimson Fellow at Yale University. Dr. Kalu's professional journey includes academic roles at the University of Nigeria, Enugu campus, and the University of Wisconsin. He later joined the World Bank East Asia and African Pacific Program, contributing to economic analysis of countries such as Japan, Korea, Taiwan, and Hong Kong. In Nigeria, he first served as Commissioner for Finance and Economic Planning in the old Imo State from 1984 to 1985, where he advocated for macroeconomic reforms and privatization strategies. At the federal level, Dr. Kalu was appointed Minister of Finance twice, 1985 to 1986, and 1993 to 1994. And then Minister of National Planning and Minister of Transport. So you can see he's served the nation in various capacities. Notably, during his time as Minister of Finance, he introduced the value-added tax system, which still remains a fiscal reform that remains integral to Nigeria's revenue framework. Internationally, Dr. Kalu has held prominent positions, including chairman of the ECOWAS Council of Ministers and chairman of the World Bank's Development Committee. His political engagement included a presidential bid in 2003 under the new Nigeria People's Party, NNPP. And he has also been affiliated with both the People's Democratic Party and the All Progressive Congress, advocating for a robust two-party system in Nigeria. In recognition of Dr. Kalu's service, he was awarded national honors of Commander of the Order of Niger, CON, and later Officer of the Order of Federal Republic, OFR. As the presenter of this year's anniversary lecture, Dr. Kalu brings a wealth of experience and insight into economic development and public policy, and he offers valuable perspectives on Nigeria's past, on Nigeria's present, and Nigeria's future trajectories. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming somebody who has inspired me, somebody who has inspired many Nigerians, somebody who has worked so hard for this nation, our guest lecturer today, Dr. Kalu Idika. Kalu, OFR. Thank you.
Can you all hear me? I will follow the already established protocols, but let me just, as is proper, recognize the Executive Governor of Abia State. He's already been duly recognized and identified as the guy who's holding the mantle, who's holding the beacon. And we are so proud to be here. As Abians, as Nigerians. So I want to specially thank Dr. Alex Otti, his wife. I know she's not here, because they always say behind every successful man there's a woman. I think that is very true in this case. I met her just a few days ago. I'm sure I've met her on other occasions, but she's there by her husband, smiling, supporting him fully to do the great job that he has started. I also want to acknowledge the presence of the deputy, our own Ohafia man, who's right beside you. We are very proud of you. The protocol is a long one, and perhaps I should be excused, but I have so many friends here, Generally Hejirika, and of course, our son who is representing us in the house, Ibe or someone. And wow, if I start now, I won't stop. So let's recognize members of the cabinet who are here, the indefatigable team, Chief of Staff, members of the House of Reps, our traditional rulers we should always recognize. When we talk about development, we have to always assume that development can only take place when there is social mobilization. There's a German who called it social mobilization. Karl Deutsch is very true. And I'm sure we have other protagonists of that particular idea. And if I might say that Dr. Alex Otti's stewardship is a very key demonstration of the efficacy of social mobilization, mobilizing the people. You are not up there as cathedral by yourself thinking of the next election, thinking of the great things you have to do, running around various capitals, shaking hands, and signing up things that may not necessarily be in the best interest of that your constituency. So social mobilization of the women in faraway villages, in various trades, transporters, hunters, producers in every field. If you look down the lane, the history of economic thought, you find that this concept of social mobilization is so important. I'm particularly happy to be here today because of what we are celebrating. If you travel around the world, you hear it from all kinds of corners in a very amazing way. It has been said that something has been happening in Abia. A bit of that is being said about a few other cities, but I think the one of Abia stands out clearly from Abians, from non-Abians, from non-Nigerians, from Europeans and others. They note that something is happening. When I came in earlier, I was a little bit concerned how much time I would be allotted. And I was told by the chief of protocol, say, well, you can speak for as long as you want. And I started scribbling some more notes in addition to what I had prepared, which I wasn't so terribly happy about. We are not here to propound economic theories. So I want to start with some preliminary comments, some of which will now be reflected, of course, in what I have written earlier. I've set out a few things here. Well, before I go to that, let me acknowledge others. I've talked about our traditional rulers. Of course, the media are very important. The media is very important. The media is under censure, under scrutiny. The media can play a role to help this nation get back in line from whatever deviations that we have observed. So we should never give them any lower position than they deserve. They play a key role. Yes. Now, what are some of the issues I just highlight? Of course, number one, which I will then talk about in my formal comment, is the issue of good governance. Well, I'm not going to be defining good governance in any theoretical academic way. Good governance just means that you are able to make your people happy by the way you are carrying out your responsibilities. You are ready to provide a framework, an ordered fashion that helps everybody to think about the needs of the society, and to govern with a heart as much as with the law. The last speaker talked about structural adjustment program. In fact, it's the second item I have on my notes. I haven't called it a structural adjustment program. I've called it structural change. I have called it this because this is a good platform to correct the impression that we've had over the years. Perhaps I could mention to you, as you were told, I was involved very much with the transformation of the Korean economy. In fact, the first document of the structural adjustment program was the one we produced on the Korean economy. Korea was producing manufactured goods, timber, plywood, what do you call it, wigs, and so on and so forth, and a bit of petroleum products. And then sometime in 1973, the OPEC countries decided to raise the price of oil. And that put a lot of them who depended on importing oil to get the petrochemicals and other derivatives for the manufacture of synthetics and so on. So the whole essence of that structural adjustment was, how do you help this country move to a different level, which required a change in the composition of what it produces. A change in the composition of what you produce will imply a different way of training your labor. So there will be structural change in your labor force. It required a different level of use of energy. In essence, it requires structurally adjusting your productive process to meet new domestic demand as well as external demand. That's what it means. Of course, if one went around the room here and asked about 10 people, how do you label such a thing? You can call it by any name. Some will say new economic policy, new development planning, a new reorganization of production. So the first thing I want us to forget when by the time we leave this room is that structural adjustment was so misunderstood, we got so confused. But that wasn't the essence of what the policy was supposed to be. It abstracts from the effectiveness with which the policies address the problems they are directed to solve. So they can be good, they can be bad, they can be effective, and of course they are themselves also, by the very nature of the term, also subject to constant change as you move from producing just palm kernels, palm oil, or rubber and cocoa into higher derivative, different products. As you move from supplying certain products of this nature into in trade, in terms of direct commodities, as you move into higher levels of valorization, higher value added. So that was a confusion that didn't need to be. So I hope that by now, the tendency to look at it as something that happened in the past would be clearly a very erroneous concept. It is something that is continually going on. The programs, the fantastic programs that our state governor and his team have fashioned to redirect Abia, education, power, farming, the manpower, in all the sectors, as we've been told. This could be called a new structural adjustment program for Abia State, and that applies to other states and to the federal government, to the extent that we have this structured effort to refashion how you produce to meet new tastes, new patterns of trade, and so on and so forth. I'm not going to say more than that in this preliminary one. The next thing I want to talk about is the borrowing. I was once invited to speak in, I think it was in Akwa Ibom, and somebody who was very close to the governor then said, and we did all this, we didn't borrow a kobo. So I was supposed to applaud, but I think the governor then knew that I was not going to necessarily applaud that. So the point I want to make is, we have come to a stage where we are worrying about the penchant for borrowing. Borrowing by the financial system, borrowing by the executive in terms of sovereign borrowing all over. It doesn't need much to be said or to be argued about that. For a country that has so much capacity for development, but with that capacity, the only way you can turn that capacity into the things that we really need, you have to invest. When you've identified what you need to invest in, at any given point in time, your savings capacity to address that investment may be equal, more or less. And this is where borrowing comes in. In other words, there is nothing inherently, clearly wrong with borrowing. You borrow because you already perceive you are going to create a value. Well, Johnson Chukwu is here. Maybe he will have some other ways of describing some of these things. You are creating a value. If you are creating a value, essentially, roughly, you weigh the value you are creating against what it will cost you to secure that additional capital. And that is where the borrowing comes in. So it would be rather foolish to keep people at a certain level of consumption, at a certain level of living, standard of living, where you can finance more to supplement your current savings so that the investment you make now in the midterm or in the long term will now bring in all these resources that will enhance your welfare, your health, your consumption of other services and so on and so forth. So that is the third thing I want to talk about. Our state government, they've got such brilliant ideas. They should not be henpecked. I know there could be, they've not borrowed. You should borrow, but when you borrow, it should be obvious that you have to do it in order to reduce the time frame from bringing in new benefits, services, and so on to the population. Another point, these are all things that affect the Nigerian economy generally, before we now go to the Abia State issue. A level playing field. I don't think one needs to go into a lot of discussion about that. A level playing field means you are providing the same opportunities for everybody. And that is how more capacity can be created by those who are best able to create that capacity. People come in at different levels of their innate capacity, but everybody is given a level playing field. Well, one of the worst aberrations of not having a level playing field, we had about a week ago. I still haven't nailed down the source of it, because that would be really terrible if it is seen that people who are in responsible positions want to alter the level playing field. And when you do that for young children, it's incalculable harm that you are doing to the entire society. Not just to the cohort of those who are addressing this inequity, but it affects the entire economy. So we need to make sure that we give people a level playing field. In fact, for some time now, I've advocated that all these presumably permissible affirmative actions where you are allocating different cutoff points for different parts, well, a few years, whatever, it's not the thing to do. The thing to do is to address the sources of this imbalance by placing more facilities to bring up all those who may see themselves as needing this affirmative action. So Not to talk of where so many years later we are talking about introducing a most unequal level playing field for youngsters who are just starting their life in education. The next point I want to underscore is the rule of law. We talk about it. It's so important. We don't need any law professor to really go to town on this before we realize that. For people to move around, for people to take initiative, for people to enter contracts, for people to take, serious risks in what they do in order to create wealth, there has to be the rule of law that can be cited and adjudicated, and infractions are punished. Everybody has the same expectations. In other words, nobody should be able to exercise any meaningful impunity, because the society expects that this is the way things should be done. It may seem simple. This is the way things should be done. The queue has to be respected. The structure of grading has to be respected. Once this is violated, it should be clear to everybody, regardless of where they come from, that those who will now put the punishment itself has to be subject to rule of law, not arbitrary. And I mention this because lately we hear a lot about all kinds of shoddy deals being meted out to all sorts of people. Certain growth of impunity. This is very important. And if you have impunity so pervasive in a society, that society cannot be said to be modernizing. Well, we can talk about peace and stability. That one is obvious enough. And then talk about traditions and modernization. If you went to East Asia, like where I worked as a staff of the World Bank, Korea, Taiwan, Japan, China, you can see this interplay of tradition and modernization. We don't have to be ashamed of our traditions. Our traditions have been modernized over the ages, and they continue to evolve. We don't need to throw away our traditions, our language, our culture, but as I said, this is not something that needs to be flogged. Now, in looking at what this administration has achieved within 2 years, that's why we are here really, I've identified certain sectors. I'm not going to be quoting the numbers. I've got some of the numbers, and His Excellency was so touched by some of the comments I had made that he thought no matter how much time I had, that I could be taken around to just see a few of the things. Well, he'll be surprised I'm citing this. I mean, the guy is so sure. It's not, I just come, I read some papers, and I write a paper, and I present it here. He was saying, oh, you can go around and see a few places. Unfortunately, I didn't have that much time, but I did have some time to visit some places. Health is so important. It's a shame that a country of our size, up to now, you can see what is happening because of some other things we'll be talking about later. One of the burdens that we are bearing is just the cost of critical health care. I'm not even about general health care, critical health care. You hear people coming up with different kinds of diseases that we are not really fully identified. I'm not saying they are more prevalent now than they were before. But at this stage, I know we've made steps at creating a national health insurance. This is a very critical area. Nigeria, a few years ago, was projected to be one of the largest countries by 2050. They said we'll be right behind India that will have overtaken China. Maybe they've already overtaken China. I'm not quite sure where the relative positions stand at this time. We are going to be number 3. Just the idea itself. After China, 1 billion people, India, 1 billion people, And here comes Nigeria, ahead of Brazil, Indonesia, Bangladesh, which are some of the large ones. United States, Nigeria will be number 3. Clearly, we cannot make it if we are not going to do something about our health sector. So this is very, very critical, and I put that, not that it's that much more important, but in terms of a critical assessment of order of importance, certainly putting health as number 1 is not that much displaced. Of course, if we don't do anything about it, that may be a reason why by 2050 we will not have met the goal. And that goal of just being number 3 in population is not something we should be so proud of in terms of just numerical numbers. It should also connote a certain level of well-being. The good Lord has given us everything. Minerals, riverine, vegetation, name it. We have it all to grow our population. That's why we are that many in the first place. But with the dynamics of population change, with the dynamics of agricultural practices, with the contribution from the climate change that's also affecting human settlements and so on all over the world, there are acute reasons why we must pay attention to the health of the infant, the health of the nursing mother, and the general health of different cohorts in the population, from young adults to adolescents, and of course, the old and the infirm. So the health sector is very important. So I'm not surprised that this state government has identified this as very critical. And one of the places I was shown was a new facility. I didn't go inside, but I saw a new facility that clearly compares with any of its peers in other states. Of course, if you say health, we always say health and education. I've already averted to the fact that we must maintain level playing field, we must be fair, there must be rule of law, there must be absence of impunity. And when these things are infringed upon, and you talk about adults, you can argue about that, but when it is against youngsters starting school, finishing primary school, finishing high school, seeking for positions in higher education, it's a crime against the society for anybody to interfere with the rule of law, with the adoption of set principles for making sure that the selective process takes place. And of course, this don't condemn anybody to a life pattern of anything, but it is that selective process that enables you to know what you have to do to those who may not be so endowed. And when we are talking about human endowment in education, the mistakes we make is to think that it is something permanent. This is also subject to evolution. I don't think many of us necessarily subscribe to this notion that, oh, some people are so smart, others are not so smart. The society has to see this as its role to equalize natural endowments by providing specific facilities, not by adopting policies to obviate the normal order of things. Well, economic growth and development. When I was a commissioner in Imo State years back, I know it was called, there was a ministry called Ministry of Economic Development. When I came in there, I said, no, we have to change it to planning. Development involves every ministry, so there cannot be really a Ministry of Economic Development. You can trust me, when I came to Lagos shortly thereafter, I did the same thing. And I said, no, we can't be calling it a Ministry of Economic Development. But the only reason I'm flagging this is that, yes, growth, where you are adding to quantums of physical production and physical facilities. But what growth really derives its entire relevance is where it contributes to development, development of the individual, development in every sphere. So I also know that this administration has been emphasizing this global sense of growth and development. If you have growth, accretion of higher numbers, and this does not result in development, all-round development, including the maintenance of an order society with rule of law, peace and stability, then something is wrong. The next point I want to underscore, and these are what I derive from just looking at some of the policies I have noted here, the place of social and hard infrastructure. Hard infrastructure, roads, bridges, transportation, communications, these are very, very important. And I think the government really has shown its mettle by ensuring that we do not just have contracts. This looks like a joke. Everywhere we talk about contracts, and then the contracts are not really carried out the way they are supposed to be. So a painstaking evaluation of identifying what the society needs and then going forth to provide the social and hard infrastructure. The social infrastructure, of course, all the things having to do with perquisites, insurance, and so on and so forth. Next one I want to talk about together is power, water, and housing. Power, I did speak with the governor briefly about that. Water and housing. They've not left any of that out. They are working on this, and I believe that part of the work I did at the World Bank, these were institutions set out to make sure that you do not necessarily get given a wrong term because you are a small economy or you don't have a high enough savings. But by identifying these key issues, power, water, housing, and delimiting sort of stepwise development, you can do it on as large a scale as your finances can take you to. These days, there's a tendency for us to circumscribe. Nothing wrong with it, but you can do better by making sure that you look afield to make sure that the projects you want to implement are large enough such that the overall unit cost will be as small as possible. And even more important than the unit cost, that you are able to reach as much of your population as possible. Of course, beyond that, communities can still go, depending on their ability, financial, technical, with assistance beyond the particular community, to do some of their own. But a state or group of states, and certainly at the federal level, the idea should be to identify the stage of development of that economy and make sure that they make investments not just for certain communities, not just for the higher classes, as it was said, but you have to think about those in the rural areas, in the small towns, in the cities, those who need it for their homes and those who need it for their industries. So these are some of the things I already have decided I'm going to pursue after this discussion to see what is happening at the federal level. Because I think there has developed a tendency for bifurcating some of these things. We need waterworks. We don't need boreholes. Boreholes are necessary to supplement, but we should reinstate the big programs that are address the needs of the bigger populations, the larger cities, the larger regions, exploiting our natural resources to make sure that the dams and so on and so forth are funded funded appropriately because they will provide more steady services at least cost. So we have to watch it so that we do not now circumscribe everything to communities and to small towns or to regions of the state and so on. So you should get back to those large scales, because that's why these institutions that will give you those facilities, once they are praised, no hanky-panky about hidden costs or extra this or that. I think, if I may say so, haven't had the experience. This is why some of these countries grew so fast, and we have had such a hard time coming close. When I worked on Korea, despite the fact that they don't have all these resources, Korea was growing at 16% in real terms. It was a wonder. When we present the projects to the board, people are asking questions. They had a labor force, trained labor force, but they tried to stick to the fundamental principles. These principles are not different here in Africa or in Nigeria or in Abia State than what they are in Latin America or Asia. So we are at a watershed where we seem to be going in the other direction. With all the goodwill in the world, some of these facilities have to get back to where they are big projects. In the early 60s, when I returned from study in the US, I think there was a very good attempt to mobilize our gas to create massive thermal plants. If we had done that now, nobody, some friends here visited even Ghana nearby, or Malaysia and some of these places. You go to some of these places, they don't know anything about generator. They don't talk about boreholes. They talk about schemes, power systems, water systems. We need to get back there. And I think that our state governor, with the experience he's had, will be among those that will also champion. It's like returning to common sense for some of these things that are not really meant for every backyard. Every backyard has a borehole, every house has a generator, and so on and so forth. Lastly, I'll just pinpoint 2 or 3 other areas. Jobs, useful engagement. If we are going to be number 3 by 2050, we have to think seriously how we are going to keep the labor force usefully engaged. We are going to be growing broadly, more vastly leaning on our resources, and never mind what our new man in Washington is talking about. It is trade and development. That's the name of the game. It is not circumscribed within your own corner. Whatever happens in America, I can assure you, it's not going to turn back the clog of transnational cooperation, because this is the means by which you can grow the economy, grow the incomes, and grow the welfare of regions, of planets, indeed, just about the whole of mankind. So we can address these problems without getting into all the theatricals that we've been reading so much about in the news. So useful employment gets a new focus when we are talking about being number 3. We are not going to be number 3 with the kind of job creation that we are having now. So much more. Macroeconomics, microeconomics, development of all kinds of sectors that require mass consumption and mass employment, tourism, and so on and so forth. I've already talked about welfare and safety net. Welfare and safety net connote the fact that Nigeria, with all the resources we've had, should not be having people lying around beggars, homeless, people who have health problems that are being exhibited by being carried around where people stop, you throw a penny at them and pass on. our society has to get out of that, to create useful employment, to take care of the infirm, people who've been injured, people who were had by accidents of birth, cannot really walk around like you and I. This is how to create a wholesome society. I've gone around Umuahia. I can't say I see so many beggars here, and I will flag it for our governor. That is his mindset already. As was said by the guy who introduced us here, somebody who cares. He cares. You can see it. His enthusiasm. You can see it in the way he moves with his team. All these extensive protocols are not there. He cares for these things. So if we are going to grow and be number 3 population-wise, we must find a way of making sure that those who are not so fortunate by birth, by intellect, or by accidents, or whatever, the society has to think of how to take care of them. And many of them can even contribute. I mean, we're not talking about Paralympics and the rest of it. Those are already there. But many of them, you don't have to ride a bus to be useful, to do something useful. So taking care of the young, the aged, and the infirm, that is another issue I wanted to flag. Security, we've already adverted to. Security, rights of citizenship, and national defense. Well, I was sitting by General Ihejirika here. This is an area, you know, when he became Chief of Army Staff, everybody was so enthusiastic, the way he came into the picture and so on and so forth. Well, that is what we have to get back to. I didn't intend to stand here and start raising a lot of controversial issues, but you can virtually not avoid it, because unless you don't mean well for our future. The issue of security, the issue of citizenship, we are talking about questioning people who are supposed to be, we are not so sure they are citizens, going around the whole place. There are very simple ways of doing this. There's a constitution, there's a law, but a lot of these things take a teeth from the way they are administered by various levels. Whether it's a group of states, like you talk about the Southeast states, should be able to know who are within the area, who are non-Nigerians, who are hiding in the bushes or wherever it is, and so on and so forth. And we all should be interested in national defense. National defense should be built up on a level playing field. It's not what is just meant for the Ndibo or Ndausa or Yoruba or Bini or Benue and so on and so forth. Yes, there are free selections of careers and so on and so forth, but every effort has to be made by those who head our various intelligence. In fact, it goes without saying, if you don't have intelligence manned by people from all parts of the country, I'm sure Ejika will agree with me and put it even more succinctly, that means you are on your own already undermining your intelligence and defense and security when you bring in laws that seem to imply that you are not doing recruitment as you should. Well, I don't know whether that is happening, but there's a sense that we may be moving more and more in that direction. It's very ill-advised. The Constitution and state structure. Some of us are intimately involved at various levels with this continuous view of how we are all joined together. There should never be any need to question the need for the citizens every once in a while to say, hey, let's look at this structure. Let's look at the Constitution. Is this serving our purpose? Purposes that those who take office have to swear to uphold the Constitution and so on and so forth, are the things they are upholding in the best interest of members of the state, of all citizens in the country. So Constitution, the structure of states, some say we have overdone it in terms of the division from 2 to 3 to 4 to 19 to 20-something now. We are talking about 36. And just a few weeks ago, I don't know, any, well, Honorable Ibe will be here to tell me what they are coming up with now. They want to raise it to 50. So we have as many states as the US. That cannot be a rationale for just, for subdividing. But what works for the people is what we should be aiming out. And finally, as I said, before I now go to look at my former presentation, we need to have our governors, we need to have our politicians, we need to have our leaders. And indeed, our traditional rulers, they have a role to play. We need to relook the political culture that we are fostering in this place. There are all kinds of negative attributes that have been used to describe what we might call the impoverishment of our political culture. The culture should be one that promotes the interests of democracy. We've all accepted democracy because that's already in line with our traditional culture. It's not something imposed. In the worst case of rulership, every segment of our society is this question of consultation, open selection, open approval. So for us to now get into quote and unquote modern cultures where we are beginning to use impunity, where we are beginning to shorten discussion, where we are beginning to quiet constructive criticism and dissent, then we know we are moving in the wrong way. So these are just preliminary comments. So as I said, I was happy when I was told that I have so much time to speak. I think I can excuse myself. I want to get into it. I'll be right back. Let me.
I think you can also, while we wait for the keynote speaker, you can also use this moment to stretch your bodies. He'll be joining us any moment from now. Use this moment to stretch your bodies while we wait for the keynote speaker. And of course, again, I would like to welcome the Deputy President General of Ohaneze Ndigbo, Chief Oke Wadinobi. Thank you. Please be seated. Would like to continue with the lecture.
If I may continue, please. I'm sorry I had to take that interlude. Good governance. That is what this administration is all about. Good governance is what good leadership is all about. A leadership that takes its time to appraise and duly consider the lay of the land, as it were. A leadership that quietly asks itself what its prime constituency is all about. The spread of its people all over the land, their social and economic conditions, the state of health, economic, social, and political harmony, in sum, the quality of peace and its sustainability. Without peace and security, we strive in vain to build, to go to farms, to repair and upgrade basic amenities, and undertake critical infrastructures. I will apologize if some of this will now sound a bit repetitive, but I had written this before I got here. The sounds and sights coming out of our state, Abia State, from the inception of the Alex Otti Democratic Consultative Suzerainty, I call it, suggests that this painstaking homework has been the hallmark. This view has remained pervasive at home and beyond the state, and most profoundly in all corners in diaspora. You should hear how people in diaspora who know that some of us are here, the kinds of things they say, the questions they raise. It is very, very ennobling. So I think we have to thank our team for what they are doing. Well, good news with little substance can spread like wildfire, but it soon dissipates in no time. We must give our Almighty God, as Reverend Aruolo in his prayer said, the praise and the honor for bringing up our governor, Dr. Alex Otti. I have to apologize that he's here and getting all this accolade, but I think it's well deserved. To sustain the sounds and sights of great achievements consistently at a high pitch that has grown from strength to strength for these last 24 months. And for the prospect of greater things to come, appearing ever so brighter. Governor Otti's tenure has been truly transformative. I intend only here to identify only a few of the widely and easily available evidence to buttress the reasons why Ibians are so enthused by these mere 2 years of solid stewardship. The governor, his deputy, as they would say in those old Portuguese days, our man is our man. And indeed, their hardworking lieutenants have demonstrated uncommon camaraderie. I say this with due humility, that I know such dedication when I see it. Such dedication was in the old Imo State that I was intimately a part of. That's what led to what has since gone into economic history as the Imo formula. So we are going to find a formula for the Abia success. Well, we may leave it to more scholarly people. What has emerged in our God's own state has been spectacular so far. Shall we dub it the Abia Initiative? Scholars would undoubtedly be more original in identifying the near miraculous transformation that all Abians have been raving about over the past months of the Otti administration. It seemed that this public approbation took a long time coming as a truly deserving socio-economic mobilization of a richly endowed and truly blessed corner of our great nation. For this great gathering here, both here and out there in the media and online, for all those attentively glued to this hallmark event, I should only summarize the great achievements of this sterling leadership, beginning with the massive roads infrastructure. I think that has already been cited. I'm not going to bore you with just everything because it's a little bit long, as you can say, because we are so happy with so much has been done. Well, you already had about 19 roads commissioned with solar lights. I saw some of that yesterday, including the General Aguironsi Boulevard, 2005 direct labor roads completed under the Zero Pothole Initiative. The commissioner who took me around, well, I wasn't feeling any bumps, and then he had to remind me that this is one of the Zero Pothole Initiative, and it's remarkable because that's what needs to be the case. There are, in addition, 31 ongoing road contracts across Abia, the Port Harcourt Road, Ohanku Road, People's Road. Some of you may not recognize some of these. I'll just go over them very carefully, very quickly rather. Dualization of Owerinta, Umuika Road, Umuika Umunye, and others in urban environments. There's also the dualization of Onuimu Abia Tower. I'm sure that one some of you will have seen. Umuokwara Ring Road, Okwet Lodi, Aheke Uguta, Ajaka Road, among others. Well, out there in Lagos, we hear all this, but we really are not in a position to identify them right away. But I have come home now and seen some of that. The Umuahia Uzuakole Abreba or Hafia Road. Of course, you will know, I will know that particularly. And I recall that, as you heard during the introduction, I was studying in the United States in the mid-60s, and I had something to do in Washington. I ran into Dr. Michael Okpara. This is around August 1965. That is how many years ago? 60 years ago. Goodness. Dr. Okpara told me, so he asked me, where are you from? I said, I'm from Ohafia. He says, we have done that your road. Can you imagine? This was the premier of the Eastern Nigeria. He was so enthusiastic about the work he was doing that he found it necessary to tell me that. Way out there in Washington, D.C., 60 years ago, this is the kind of stewardship that we have with us now. Somebody who's ready to tell you, we've done this, we are doing this. We should be very, very grateful. Most of these stretches have been completed and recently commissioned by former President Olusegun Obasanjo. In the health sector, renovations, retrofitting of 200 primary health care centers. I was a member of government under the Babangida administration when Professor Ransom Kuti, Olikoye Ransom Kuti, that was one of his pet ideas, this primary health care, to bring health, as I said earlier, to make sure that if we are going to be among the top 3, it is also with good health and not just numbers, with a high mortality and morbidity. And the starting point for this, of course, is creating this network of primary health care centers across the state. And here they've codenamed it Project Ekweme. Is that right? And Akokwa Kaneba, please give them up. 75% of these are at different levels of completion. And this is only halfway through, so there's so much more to come. Well, there's a lot more. Upgrading of Umuneato and Abia Specialists and Diagnostic Center. That I saw today. My my friend, the Honorable Commissioner of Information, was so gracious as to point this out to me today. So I've seen those with my koro eyes, as it were. That exercise brings to a total number of 3 specialist referral hospitals owned by this Abia State. Please give them a clap, give them a clap. There are also 22 ongoing construction of general hospitals, upgrading and retrofitting of Abia Specialist Eye Center that will rank among the best in this country. There is the launching of the Abia State Formal Health Insurance Scheme. Well, it's like you heard what I said. Nigeria must find a way to make sure that people are not dying of rare diseases, cancer, dementia, all sorts of things, because they cannot afford. They cannot afford it. These are still diseases that are not affecting large numbers of people, but the cost of cure is so high. So I think this is one of the areas the state government is already looking into. There's also a 1.3 billion. You can translate that by your Naira values to know what that comes to. World-class medical facilities to reverse the flood of medical tourism abroad. This is one of the great, should I say, wrong directional flow in our society. We have created a network of a few medical facilities who've trained a lot of people, but lo and behold, they are out there in other parts of the world performing feats, as we just had one of our Abian young doctors that you might have read, performing all kinds of really surgery that is the first of its kind. We need to attract these people back. Of course, each individual still has to make up his mind, but by the state government going out of its way to create these facilities, you can see that they are moving in the right direction. Let me quickly move to urban development. Well, Abia needs urban development. There's no question about that. In recent issues in Nigeria here, people tended to question. They thought people were all moving into Lagos or wherever because they had no place to go. Of course, that is said by people who do not know the area. But having said that, the state government is creating development, urban capital development areas in Aba, Umuahia, and Ohafia. And of course, the intention is clear. As population grows, and you have conglomerates as we expect to come, you have to have these larger units where facilities can be provided in a commensurate number and at least cost to the people. It will suffice to also enumerate other major strides in the power sector. I spoke with the governor yesterday, and he explained to me what they are trying to do in the power sector to make sure that the state government complements what the federal government is doing, what the private sector is doing, to make sure that power development, to establish a fund to support entrepreneurs and all kinds of other areas. This can-do administration has also embarked on the revitalization of various moribund enterprises that have been lying waste. Training and empowerment of 300 youths at CSS farms, the ease of doing business agency, and the public-private partnership investment promotion department. A key area in Dr. Otti's innovative governance is the emphasis on security, justice, and the rule of law. For me to now repeat that again, to guarantee peace that is a sine qua non for sustainable development. Several disbursements have already been made for the establishment of security equipment, an impressive commitment to facilities for the dispensation of justice in all the 17 local government areas of the state. There are distinctive projects planned and significant number ongoing projects under the Abia Waste Disposal and Management Program. So let me now summarize by just identifying a few key projects yet to be commissioned or flagged off or ongoing. This includes the Port Harcourt Road. That one, when you enter Abia, that's the first thing you hear about the Port Harcourt Road, and it is very well deserved because we know what went on for the last several years, despite the growth of substantial revenue that accrued to the state and so on. There is an Abia project, Abia Airport project. As a commissioner in Imo State way back there, we were in fact close to relocating or building a new airport at the Umunato area. Of course, that our stint was cut short by change in government, and some of us now moved to Lagos. But I'm so happy to see that there's a new Abia Airport project. There's a new Abia Medical City being considered. There's Abia Media and Entertainment Village. This already tells you about the sheer breadth of the thinking of this administration, because all of this contribute to a very wholesome development for Abia State. There's a new stadium project. I don't know if I should be revealing all this. So I think we're all Abians, but we don't want to give undue ideas to all these other people to come and copycat. But they are welcome to copycat. It's all for Nigeria. The deep sea port at Azumini, Obuako, and the Abia estate development projects are still other things that are ongoing. Well, let me now end. There are broader and very notable aspects of the overall vision of the Alex Otti administration. This may be seemingly intangible, soft governance issues that are still very indicative, nonetheless, of the total picture that Dr. Otti has brought to bear on this job. I will simply flag some of them. The state government, as I underscored in my first comments, review comments, is thinking of a reform of the state civil service. Well, we've had President Trump talking about reviewing the American federal structure, but I'm sure that is not the way that Dr. Alex Otti and his team are thinking of going about this. There's a sense of modernization. There's a sense of digitalization. They want to build a broadband access. Some of us don't even understand some of this. You know, we are old stock. A broadband access to workers and a comprehensive coverage of the entire state by the end of this year. Well, those who are close here must know how much that is close to completion. I believe that's not a typographical error. By the end of this year, a broadband access to workers and a comprehensive coverage of the entire state. There are also plans for establishing an Abia digital mall and a digital marketplace, the provision of cloud services, and a device ownership scheme to enable the acquisition of laptops, smartphones, Wi-Fi devices, and other digital associated units. Lastly, and certainly not the least, is the reinstating of what I consider a great social responsibility. That social responsibility is a tradition for the prompt payment of workers' salaries and monthly pensions. This was a core element of the Imo formula. So I'm happy that that is being emphasized here. And this will be done, I understand, on the 28th day of every month. I think that is today. I see some of the empty seats. Maybe people are somewhere waiting for their salaries and pensions. So do we call this the Abia initiative or Abia routine or whatever? There will be people who will give it the proper nomenclature. The Otti administration intends to end this sense of rampant borrowing. I've already earlier addressed the issue of borrowing, that the archaic notion that borrowing is the problem. I think they will be in a position to show that far from being a problem, it is a way of enhancing faster, broader growth and the creation of job, the creation of capacity, and the creation of employment. Finally, fiscal reorganization plan. The Otti administration wants to underpin administrative reorganization and sustainable social and economic development under an atmosphere of good governance, equity, and the rule of law. Wow, wow, wow. On your behalf, we say to our esteemed governor and his team, well done. Jide nunke unuji. God bless you all. God bless Abia State. And God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Ndewonu.
Ndewo. I think the keynote speaker deserves a standing ovation, please. Another round of applause for the keynote speaker. Thank you so much, our erudite scholar, Dr. Kalu Idika Kalu, CON, OFR, for letting us share from your wealth of experience. And I must confess, this is very incisive, moving through so many areas of development in Abia State, and also leveraging on all of that to make inputs on the way forward. Remember, the theme for this second anniversary lecture is 2 years of transformation, sustaining the momentum. I know we may have some people who would wish to make comments or ask questions or observations. Let me, at this point, invite the Honorable Commissioner for Information for this session. A round of applause for Prince Kano. Thank you.
Thank you, Adeze. Your Excellency, the Executive Governor of Abia State, Your Excellency, the Deputy Governor, our dear keynote speaker. Please, another round of applause for him. At 86, it's not easy to come and stand here for almost 2 hours. Thank you, sir. So having listened to his very engaging lecture, very lucid lecture, there may be need for comments. There may be need for questions, for some form of clarity from him. So we devote the next 5-10 minutes, with permission from His Excellency, to take a few questions and comments from, okay. Can you get a mic for him? Please, before you ask your question, your name, so we know you.
My name is Udo Oluchi Ibech. I am a former member of House of Representatives for Ikuano Umuahia Federal Constituency. Now, may I stand on the existing protocol, please? The lecturer has listed so many projects. In fact, he couldn't even list all of them that His Excellency has achieved. There is no question about it. Some of us who have yearned for good governance in Abia State, there is no question about it that it is in the past 2 years that that aspiration, that yearning has been fulfilled by His Excellency Dr. Alex Otti. There is no question about it. Anybody who denies that is just trying to be mischievous. However, this theme of this lecture is very important, sustaining the momentum. It is important to start. It is even more important now to sustain that momentum. So I will commend His Excellency, but I will urge that even though the standards are already high, let the standards be raised higher so that milestones will be set and those milestones will be achieved. Why this is important is so that we don't go back to any government that does not have any purpose anymore. That is why it is very important. So that in the future, by the time this administration has achieved its goals, anybody who wants to be governor of Abia State again, any group who wants to sponsor anybody to be governor of Abia State again, must know that there is a lot to do, must know that there is a high standard to achieve. It's not just strolling into the government house without a definite purpose. So let the minimum standard achieved by this administration be the takeoff point from which any future administration in Abia State will be based. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your very kind words. I believe a few days ago, His Excellency signed some executive bills, about 18 executive bills, bringing to 30 the total number of executive bills so far signed into law in the state. And what that speaks to is the fact that the reforms that has been carried out and all the massive transformation that have been going on needs to be institutionalized and to strengthen governance in the state. But having said that, His Excellency has set very high standards in governance, and I believe that nobody will stroll into government house anymore in Abia. Thank you very much for your kind words. Thank you. A round of applause for him, please. Next question, okay. Who is that? Could you please? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I am Ahabe Fula Stephen Barabiro. I'm a law teacher and the head of administration, Abia State University, Umuahia campus. Mr. Moderator, and particularly the guest speaker. According to Bishop Becher and W.W. Rostow, they defined and identified 5 stages of development, economic development, in their book titled Economic Growth and as Non-Communist Manifesto. The 5 developmental stages are particularly, number 1, the traditional stage that is said to be characterized by a stagnant economy. The pre-condition stage for takeoff into self-sustaining growth that drive maturity. And then the 3rd stage, which is the takeoff. The takeoff is very difficult in planning of any business. The takeoff is very difficult in governance. Mr. Moderator, sir, I would want to ask the guest speaker. I listened attentively to his lecture, quite incisive, near comprehensive. However, there is a missing link, which I will want him to answer for us. His Excellency, Dr. Alex Otti, Chioma Otti, came in. Without recognizing the 4th stage, the traditional stage, which is characterized by stagnant economy. Given our experiences the past 24 years before he ascended the throne. Without also with undermining the second stage, which is a stage of self-sustenance and self-sustaining into maturity. Without also looking at the very difficulties of takeoff in governance. He took off and started achieving all that the guest speaker had mentioned. All that is at least they has listed according to the guest speaker. And according to all that we have been seeing in this state. I would want to know. Ndị Igbo na-asị ọkụkọ edutere na a new environment na o ji otu okwu eguzo okwu ya. He never stood with one leg. These 2 years, for one day, he never stood with one leg. And he took up and started achieving. I will want this guest speaker to ask him, His Excellency, what magic? Because, you know, for the past 10 years, in every electoral process, elect Otti for governor, elect Otti for governor, elect Otti for governor. For 10 years, they continue denying him. And he now won massively, won through the courts, and started like a magical man. How did he do it? Thank you very much.
That was almost another lecture. The question he raises is that he should ask His Excellency the magic, how he's been able to do it in these past 2 years.
No, it's okay. Well, towards the end of that question, you could see that the questionnaire meant very well. He meant really to applaud the governor. But let me say that I believe I was just getting into the university when W.W. Rostow, I believe it was, that wrote about stages of growth. Now, those things are, depending on where you are at that point in time. So we shouldn't make too much of, although maybe the governor can say it's like trying to run before you really learn to walk or something, that sort of thing. Okay, so I don't think that is in the field. Nobody is really talking much more about some finite and definitive stages of growth. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. I hope you're satisfied with that response. And His Excellency says it every other time in different fora. The magic of what he's been able to do in these 2 years. From all he says, you find out that he came very prepared, and he knows his onions with regards to governance. The government is very prudent. The government is transparent, and of course, very accountable to Abians. And when you have a mixture of all this together, what you get is what you see today. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir, for that response. I think there are no more questions, or who? Oh, Onyeze. Okay, please, could you give the mic to this, the traditional ruler?
Okay, thank you. I stand on the existing protocols. My name is Royal Highness, is the Elder Oduma Mogu, traditional ruler of Owanya Autonomous Community. I want to really use this opportunity to express my profound gratitude. You know, I personally got so worried about the state of Abia. And as the election was coming, it was like, what will happen if there is no change? And fortunately, that change came, and it has been so wonderful. So I want to congratulate Abia that these things will be bettered. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So I believe we've come to the end of the questions and comment session. Time is fast spent, so we need to. No, sorry, it's over for now. Let me now use this opportunity to, on behalf of His Excellency, the State Executive Council, and the entire government of Abia State, thank our keynote speaker today, Dr. Kali Idika-Kalu, OFR. I can't remember anybody mentioning your national award. And I have a story to tell, like the Secretary to State Government. A few years back, our paths used to cross as members of the editorial board of Business Hallmark newspapers of our late friend, Prince Emeka Obasi. And in that capacity, I used to help him anchor occasions when we have the Business Hallmark policy series. And I recall once that I made this mistake 2-3 times. I called you Dr. Idika-Kalu. Idika. So after the third time, you took the mic and you hushed me very well and said, that's not my name. Call me by my name, Idika-Kalu, and I apologized. And I remember my friend, when I was walking down, when I invited you to the podium, as I was going down, my friend was chuckling and said, he doesn't take prisoners, don't make such mistakes again. But today, nobody mentioned your national award. I had to remember that. Let me thank you, sir, on behalf of the state government for your very engaging lecture. Thank you for availing us of your very rich reservoir of knowledge and experience. Thank you for all the encomiums you've poured on the governor and the government of Abia State. I recall when we were going around yesterday, the comments we were making, very positive comments about the government, about the governor, and it got to a point where you even referred the governor as a crossbreed between Dr. Michael Okpara and late Chief Sam Mbakwe. So we want to thank you, sir, for this very engaging lecture, and pray that God will continue to guide you as you age gracefully. At 86, it was not easy for one to come and stand here and did what you did today. So our prayer is that God will continue to keep you for us. You are one of our best. Thank you, and God bless.
I think the Honorable Commissioner deserves another round of applause, please. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point, we are ready to listen to the man who has continued to give every Abian the hope of good leadership. Of course, we prayed for a good leader that we got in Dr. Alex Otti. We prayed for a man with a life of impact that we received in Abia State as our dear governor. We prayed for a leader who would feel the pains of the people he leads, and that God answered us. We prayed for an excellent, spirited leader. We also got that in Dr. Alex Otti. Of course, there's a very popular cliche that you cannot give what you don't have. But in Abia State, we're blessed with a leader who has what it takes to govern. We're blessed with a leader who has a very exceptional mindset, a man who came on board to deliver, and he is delivering. Almost all of the state's economy is better off under the watch and able leadership of His Excellency, Dr. Alex Otti. Of course, you can also join me to tell the story. Remember, it's just 2 years in office, So you can imagine what would happen within the next 6 years. Ladies and gentlemen, join me therefore as I invite our dear father, His Excellency, a great leader of our time, His Excellency, the people prayed for and God answered our prayers, His Excellency, a man of infrastructural development, Dr. Alex Otti, OFR. Please speak to your people. Thank you.
Please be seated. Thank you. Your Excellency, the Deputy Governor of Abia State, Engineer Ikechukwu Emeto, Fellow, Nigerian Institute of Engineers, the keynote speaker, Dr. Carlo Idika Carlo, CON. Let me use the Honorable Commissioner for Poverty Alleviation and Social Protection, Mrs. Ngozi Blessing Felix, to reach out to all the women in the house. I'd like to use one of our professionals, respected professionals, Sir Ogala Osaka, former managing director of Nikon, an elder statesman. Permit me to use you to reach out to all the men in the house. Let me stand on other existing protocols which have been led by the moderator and MC. I have a prepared speech which is short, but before I go into it, I'd like to make a few remarks. The first one is to thank Dr. Carlo Idika Carlo, CON, for accepting to deliver this keynote speech today. It was actually meant to be in Abuja for another important occasion, but he decided to sacrifice that to be here, and he's been here since yesterday. So thank you so much, sir. I'd like to also apologize to you. In the printed document, they decided to refer to you as OFR. Of course, you are OFR, but you also do have the higher honor of Commander of the Order of the Niger. So I'm sure they have taken correction. Maybe they wanted to equate you with somebody like me that is like your son. You got your first degree a year before I was born in economics. The year I was born, you got your master's degree in economics. And the year I started primary school, you got your PhD in economics. So I will advise the Honorable Commissioner for Information to mind himself. While you are an authority in economics, some of us are still students of economics learning under your feet. And by the way, in a few months you will be 86 and you don't look it. So we want to thank God for your life, Thank God for what he has done with you and what he's still doing with you and what he will do with you. One of our elder statesmen who I contacted earlier, who now said, why don't you call KIK? Dr. Umelazu. In a few days, he will be turning 95, and he's still very strong. In fact, he's not going anywhere until maybe he hits 100. And that will be your own portion too. Someone asked a question about the Abreba-Ohafia link road. A little bit of correction. The flag off of that road didn't happen at the same time that the Omuahia Ozuakole to Abreba happened. Something went wrong. The contractor that was penciled down for that stretch, we didn't find him to have the capacity to deliver the quality of road. So we had to cancel it and awarded it to CCECC. So, and that took time. But having said that, I have also put the Commissioner for Works on notice that CCECC, a good contractor, by the way, is taking his time, and we have given them a deadline to deliver. And of course, the road from Ohafia to Arochukwu is also being fired, and we have a deadline between which it must be delivered. I would also like to talk about borrowing. Of course, as a banker or a former banker, borrowing is my life. But then, because I was also a former banker, I know what the bankers know. So I only borrow when I need to borrow. So the first thing that we did here was to inculcate financial discipline and responsibility. We looked at some of the loans. They were not necessary. We paid them down. We looked at the books, and we found that some people were overcharging us, and we put pressure on them. Before even we could report them, they had refunded the money. So those are some of the things that we did to reduce the loan. Of course, we have been very diligent in paying out loans that were expensive. In today's Nigeria, where interest rate is somewhere around 30%, because the MPC rate is about 27.5%, and that's the benchmark rate. It means that in 3.5 years, if you borrowed any money, it will double. So if you borrow 100 million, in 3 years it will be 90 million. A few more months, it will be 100 million. So the question to ask yourself is, what are you investing this money you are borrowing into that will generate you returns that will be more than 100% in 3.5 years? So that's the way we think. And if we are going to invest, we must reap returns. But then thank God that we are also, because of how we've managed the finances, we've been able to pay down loans and also pay all our contractors. We are not owing anyone. And of course, salary arrears and pension arrears we had paid down. And sometimes you also find that it makes economic sense to pay rather than keep the money in the bank. Some of the people that you talked about that are happy today, it is because they have some money to spend. And then the economy works better when there is money inside it. When you withdraw money from the economy, you are actually supposed to do that when the economy has grown so much that you need to now tame it a little bit. That is economic theory that you taught us. So, in our budget for 2025, we made provisions for borrowing. And we will borrow. But we only borrow when we need to borrow. So, that is my response on borrowing. Now, let me go to my speech. And I've titled it Transformation as the First Fruit of Knowledge. Ideas are the fundamental pillars upon which the critical structures of social and economic transformation rest. Every marvel that exists today, even the intricate details of the most complex technological or structural machinery, once started as an idea, inspired by knowledge, and expanded through the mind's power of infinite curiosity. Nothing of significance was ever achieved without first being conceived in the mind and pushed into reality by building layers and layers of new ideas, such that transform the movement of electrons into the ageless wonder of electricity. Ideas are therefore the true capital. The rest, as a philosopher once said, is just money, defined as a means of exchange. Let me, on this note, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, thank the guest lecturer, Dr. Carlo Idiga Carlo, CON, for the brilliance of his presentation and for exploring the foundational philosophy of the new ABIA framework. Dr. Carlo's intellectual offering has lent further credibility to the scope of transformation happening here. And if there's one person who says it as it is, who does not need to inflate outcomes or speak for applause, Dr. Carlo, a renowned global economist, former finance minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and an accomplished elder statesman, is that authority. More importantly, Dr. Carlo's testimony is true because he is talking to his people. And as many of us may be aware, in a gathering of kinsmen like this one, only the truth is good enough, and only the truth is acceptable. We decided to put this lecture together to talk to ourselves honestly and evaluate how far we have come, what we have done right, and what we can do better. Because as I had said in times past, no human endeavor is perfect, for even our best output today can be made better. We are, however, required to be open to honest assessment and constructive engagement with those watching keenly from the sides. The choice of Dr. Carlo as the guest lecturer, beyond the fact that he has intellectual depth and professional exposure to make a critical evaluation of the frame of development that has taken place in Abia over the last 24 months, was hemmed by the understanding that his recommendations will be helpful in navigating the complex demands of governance in a dynamic socio-political environment where success requires striking a balance between investing in critical infrastructure and also committing resources to support extremely vulnerable individuals and families. Dr. Carlo, as we saw through the length of his beautiful presentation, appreciates that oftentimes what changes society in the long run may not be the gigantic physical infrastructure that excite public imagination, but investments in seemingly abstract ventures which ultimately improve the health, knowledge, and wealth of the present and future generations. I must also express great satisfaction with the feedbacks provided during the question and answer session. The central takeaway for me is that there is a growing interest in matters of governance in the state. The enthusiasm of our people to seek information, commend government when it does right, and express reservations when it errs, tells me that we have stirred something in the system. The implication is that nobody will ever come here and take the people for a ride without a car going forward. Having banished the ghost of delays or outright denial of salaries and pensions, improved urban sanitation, and tackled the challenge of poor road networks, it will be near impossible for any governor to come in the future and give idle excuses of non-performance. Permit me, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, to thank Representative Oluchi Ibeji for actually making this point. And I can assure you, sir, that once people have tested good governance, it is near impossible to take them back to Egypt. If you are in doubt, go to Anambra. Once they got it right, no matter what you say, even about Professor Chukwuma Soludo, fantastic guy, he knows what he's doing. And they keep improving from one governor to the other. But I must also make a point, and I keep making that point, that the decision about future leaders lies with all of us in this room. You cannot fold your arms and cross your feet and expect good governance. There is a saying that every society gets the kind of leadership it deserves. So if you don't get good governance, it's because you kept quiet. If they install people who do not have any agenda, who do not qualify to lead, and you allow them to lead you, then you have succumbed. And they can engage the car in a reverse gear, and then you go back, even beyond where you are coming from. And my prayer is that that will not be our portion in Abia State, in Jesus' name. For me, the highlight of our achievements in the last 2 years is the fact that we have raised the governance bar, that no one will ever be permitted to bring it down or lower. It is either you are prepared to work for Ndiabia with sincerity or purpose, or you remain in your comfort zone. On the strength of what we have accomplished in terms of inspiring debates and regular interactions, through programs like the monthly media chat, which allows me the opportunity to feel the pulse of our people, I believe strongly that we have eternally closed all channels of deceit and dishonesty in public service here in Abia State. Leadership, I have to reiterate, is simply about the expression and execution of ideas. The development status of any society often paints an accurate picture of the quality of ideas that run in the minds of its leaders. If you pay attention to the evolution of societies through history, you can effortlessly establish one fact: nothing of significance happens by accident. Greatness is the product of deliberate planning and consistency in asking the one question that is at the heart of every transformation: what if? And I would like to also underscore the point that was made by the guest lecturer. You need to sit down and ask that question. What do you want to achieve? What if it doesn't happen? Everything happening in Abia today started off as an idea, a product of what if. What if we make our road networks better? How would that impact economic output? What if our streets are cleaner? How would it support the appeal of our urban centers? What if we pay salaries and pensions as and when due? How would it benefit the upbringing and education of Abia children? And then, of course, how would it affect the economy and the productivity of the workforce? What if we make Abia an oasis of safety, fight criminality headlong, and make this place a difficult environment for outlaws to operate? How would this initiative impact business growth, employment generation, and entrepreneurship? What if we make Abia a model state and give our people all over the world a sense of identity and pride? Would that motivate them to bring their investments and wealth home? What if we recreate a state where opportunities for self-expression and fulfillment exist for everyone, so that our young men don't need to empty into other places just to find a regular job? What if we build systems that attract global talents and capital to Abia? Seeking answers to these important questions, establish another layer of facts. We have to be above board in everything we do. Our appointments, investment decisions, choice of projects, and the quality of vendors must reflect the scope of our aspirations. And this is one of the reasons why the last batch of the Omuahia on Hafia Road is still being worked on today, because we asked the question, would this contractor be able to deliver this? How long will it take him to deliver it? Even when he delivers it, is it going to be the quality that we want to be associated with? And when we couldn't answer those questions in the affirmative, we decided to revoke the contract before even he started. And when you make mistakes in our administration, you should be honest enough to admit that you have made mistakes, and you should not be too proud not to take the decision to reverse yourself. I'm the first person to reverse myself whenever I see that a decision that I had made is wrong. From the very beginning, we made it clear that we can only celebrate real achievements, and the regular people must be at the forefront. Many of us were in Aba 7 days ago to witness the promise-kept carnival organized by landlords and business owners in the city after the successful delivery of Port Harcourt Road. Without a kobo from the coffers of the state government, traders, artisans, commercial drivers, and others pulled resources together to celebrate what the government has done in their city. Even my suggestion that we wait for the official commissioning before we roll out the drums was not heeded. It was a people's event and not a government program, I was told. Last Saturday, they continued with street walks to announce what many tagged the liberation of Aba from the shackles of bad roads and stinking environment. Across the state, random individuals plying the roads we had either constructed or rehabilitated make videos narrating their experiences and share to the public without any input from us. A former Minister of Finance who visited the state recently made a viral social media post announcing that Umuahia has gone from being one of the dirtiest urban destinations in the country to one of its cleanest. We do not take such testimonies for granted. Thank you. We do not take such testimonies for granted. Our guest lecturer understands taxation better than most of us, having played a major role in the evolution of the Nigerian tax system. But he is also aware that one universal fact about taxation is that many people, especially dollar billionaires, who prefer to either pay very little or nothing at all. If you are in doubt, ask President Trump. It may, however, come as news to him that something unprecedented is happening here in Abia. Businessmen and entrepreneurs on their own come to me to ask how they can contribute more to the government through taxes. Thank you. Or by whatever name. Clearly, they agree with my position that taxes represent government's share of the prosperity it has helped to create. Seeing how what we are doing with road infrastructure, security, and urban sanitation impacts their economic fortunes, the businesses making the most of the improved environment in Abia are not shy to step forward to ask the government to take its share. Abia is evidently changing, and the credit for the transformation belongs to all of us. We are therefore encouraged to keep pushing and never stop asking, what if? We are only getting started, because much of what we have done in the last 2 years is to correct the terrible injustice of the past, starting with offsetting outstanding salary and pension, rehabilitating roads that went bad decades ago, and other responsibilities that our predecessors quietly ignored. I'm glad that we have made remarkable progress and set a new benchmark that will form the backbone of the structure of governance, just like the guest lecturer said. We shall commit the remaining 2 years of this term to institutionalizing the reforms that have been initiated. As you may be aware, I signed 18 new legislation passed by the State House of Assembly into law on Monday. The letters and spirit of those legislations are structured to improve governance outcomes and unleash dormant economic potentials and make our administrative system more responsive. Let me once again thank everyone in this auditorium for the honor of your presence at this special anniversary lecture. We shall have more intellectually stimulating events like this going forward. And I have directed my team to develop a robust framework for achieving it. We shall not be tired of listening to and debating new ideas, for that is the path to continuous growth and progress. Collectively, we shall make Abia the hub of transformational ideas. Let me once again thank Dr. Idika Carlo, for accepting to come and for the excellent delivery of a thought-provoking lecture. Like Oliver Twist, we will come again, and we hope you will not give us the Oliver Twist treatment when we do come. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, let me thank you so much for listening, and as you leave, my prayer is that you get to your destination safely. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you. Your Excellency, sir, it would be nice to have this memory captured, having the keynote speaker in a photo session with you. Thank you. And of course, the keynote speaker, sir, Dr. Idika Carlo, please join His Excellency for a photo session. And when we're done with that, we'll have a few of the elder statesmen also join. First, with the keynote speaker, sir, Dr. Idika, please, for a photo session. And of course, after that, we'd have General Hejrika join. We'd have Dr. Gershon Amota join. Chief Uzodimma Okbara, Chief Johnson Chukwu, Chief Tony Okasanya, Chief Ogala Osoka, Right Honorable Oluchi Udo Ibeji would also be joining. Chief Isaac Obona, Chief Joseph Ogo. Please, all of you, including Prince Okenwadinobi, will be joining His Excellency for this very memorable photo session. Thank you. Chief Dr. David Oba Onoha, apologies too. Of course, the D-Gov, Deputy Governor, would not be seen missing in this. Thank you.
The emperor, the conqueror, the champion, the lion is here.
Congratulations once again to the generational leader, the great reformer, the trailblazer governor, Abia State of our time, His Excellency Dr. Alex Otti, OFR. Of course, immediately after the photo session with statesmen, would have members representing us well at the National Assembly in a photo session with His Excellency the Governor. Please, National Assembly members, join His Excellency. Okay, thank you so much. Your Excellency, our dear Governor, it's our prayer that God continues to imbue you with much wisdom and strength to pilot the affairs of this great state, Abia, as the momentum of good governance and transformation is sustained. Thank you so much. Of course, we're getting ready now to take the national anthem. Please, those who are sitting down should stand. Those who are sitting should stand. Those who are sitting should stand. Remember, it's the Abia anthem first, and then the national anthem. All right, the national anthem.
Oziri obodo Chukwu ga-abịa bụ obodo ahịa na ọrụ aka steeti mbụ ekele anyị ga-arụsiri ike ibu ndị mbụ Abịa ga-adị ugwu ebebere ugobere igwe bụ ike Chukwu gọzie Abịa.
Thank you. May God bless His Excellency, our dear Governor of Abia Godson State. May God bless Abia State. May God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you once again for coming.